Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to play the fried liver, and without any further ado, enjoy the video. It starts off with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, and knight g5. White is threatening to take the pawn on f7 with his knight, forking the rook on h8 and the queen on d8. There are many variations for this, and today I'll be going through all of them and teaching you how to attack and defend against them. The first one is d5. Now, the pawn is threatening to take the bishop on c4, and now the knight cannot take on f7 because the pawn is blocking the bishop's coverage of the knight. So white decides to take the pawn on d5. The correct move to play against this is knight a5. Now you'll win the pawn wherever the bishop goes, and for example after this, you first has to play h6, and after he goes there, you go there, and then you can win the pawn afterwards. The second variation is bishop to c5. White, thinking you just want a free pawn and a rook, takes the pawn on f7. Now you must take the pawn on f2. There are lots of variations in this video, and I have included the moves in the description below. After we will talk about king takes on f2, we'll be talking about if just the king goes to f1. If the king takes the bishop on f2, this is where the fun begins. You must take the pawn on e4, delivering a check. The white king can go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares right now. 2 of them survive and 4 of them just lose. The 2 that survive are to e3 and to g1. All the others do not. If the king goes to f3, then you play queen to f6, and after king takes e4, often d5 is a common move, and as you can see, white's king is in the center and it's basically practically checkmate. If the king goes to f1, keep in mind that queen to f6 does not work because of queen to f3. So you're going to want to play queen to h4, threatening checkmate. White's only option is to play queen to f3, but then after knight to d4, it is basically practically it because the queen is threatening to checkmate. Also, the knight is threatening to take the queen, and also the pawn on c2. So white is still going to lose. If white decides to go to g1, which is actually the best move, you play queen h4, but now g3 prevents the queen from checkmating. Now you would play knight takes g3, and when the pawn takes, you play queen to g3 check. After white playing king to f1, you must now play knight to f8, which is pinning the knight and the king. Although we are down by 3 points in material, you are going to want to play a move such as d5, sacrificing our pawn, and when the bishop takes, you play a move such as bishop to g4. The other correct move, king to e3, you can also keep in mind you cannot play queen to g5 because then the knight will take, but you have to play queen to h4, and often you will see the move g3, trying to get rid of the queen. You must take the pawn with your knight again, and then after, for example, the pawn takes, you have to deliver a check. So it is queen to d4 check. White doesn't really have any convenient squares to go to. For example, if the king goes to e2, then you just take the bishop, and it's also basically just when your piece is back that you sacrificed, so yeah. Another move white might play is to d3, which is personally a favourite of mine, which is a mate in 2. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the mate in 2. The mate in 2 is queen to f4, check. The white king has no other option than to go to e2, and then queen to f2, checkmate. Now I'll be talking about the best move for white, which is king f1. Obviously our queen and rook are still under attack, so black has to move his queen, so to e7. Now if the knight takes on h8, we do not slow down and play d5. And if the bishop takes on g5, you have to play g4 with the bishop and threaten to take the queen, and the queen is trapped. So you'll win the queen and probably the game. If the pawn takes, you will jump in with the knight to d4. Keep in mind that also the king cannot take the bishop on f2 because of the same reason. And in a lot of my games, people play c3, and then you have to play bishop to g4. Then when the queen goes to a4, obviously now there is no winning, you play knight to d7. Now if they take your knight on d4, you play queen to f6. Also the king is trapped, so he cannot escape the discovered check or checkmate. Anyway, that is it for today's video. I'll be posting regularly, so if you could please subscribe and like this video.